Hi there, and welcome back to another video of jPlay. I'm Marcus, and originally you should be watching the next episode of my playthrough of Sire. But the guys from H Company kindly asked me to do a little preview video for the new Kickstarter campaign, Raid and Trade, which is, I think, going to start today. So, here I am, and there you are. In Raid and Trade, players play survivors in a post-apocalyptic world who strive around wasted cities for useful items, weapons and medicine. The main goal is to make it into the Golden City, and for those who enjoy variable victory conditions, here's some good news: you can get into the city by completely different means. You can try to reach 20 skill points, and additionally you have to spend 20 action points, which isn't that easy, but I'll come to that in a second. You can also try to complete 3 quests, but then you also have to spend 20 action points. Or last but not least, you can try to earn 10 favor points, but yeah, you guessed it right, you also have to spend 20 action points. And when you reach those victory conditions, you can claim yourself the winner, and you are allowed to enter the Golden City. The Golden City is nowhere found on the game board, but I tend to think of it like in the movie The Island with Ewan McGregor. So you can go to the island and then you will be the winner. Not sure if you really make it to the island, but I think you can make that out for your own. I think I don't have to mention that the components you see here are of course prototypes and do definitely not reflect the final production quality. Some artwork may change in the course of the campaign, but I'm pretty sure you are aware of that fact. The version of the rules I received originally were not the final version, but in the meantime it seems the final version is out. But of course the main mechanics are definitely finished, and that's basically the reason why I don't giving you a full rule primer video. Basically I will walk you maybe 1 or 2 turns or something like that, and just in order to give you an overview about this one here. Let's get started and prepare the wasted city by placing the tile with a black marker in the middle and the 8 street tiles around that one here. You can do that randomly or agree on a specific setup. As I'm a fan of randomness, I just drew them blindly here. And this will be the black marker token for this game. I think I will walk you through a 3-player game, being the current minimum for Raid and Trade. But I think in respect to possible conflict, it's always the more the merrier, I guess. All those characters have different dice that they're using during a possible conflict or when defending. In this prototype we will be using standard D6s and refer to the table on each character sheets, but as mentioned, the final game will come with some very cool custom dice. The blue wheel represents the skill points, starting at 0 here. The green wheel shows the available action points each round, and the yellow-red wheel over there shows your favor points in yellow or your blacklist points in red. Those are the miniatures that ship with this prototype, but again, the final product seems to come with actual and very nice minis. For now, those wooden cubes are fine though. Each character also comes with his own item deck, which he can draw from during the course of the game. And really, those items are very unique for each of the characters. So for example, those are some of the items from Kato, the bodyguard, more like the fighter guy. So he has more weapons like this super gun or the hyper gun or this helmet here. But all the other characters come with different items. For example, Zoe the electrician has this gas cooker or the hawker's tray. So not really fight-based items, but really stuff that helps her in order to gain additional resources. Depending on the amount of players, you place some houses on the corresponding places on the tiles. In a 3-player game, you ignore the space that show a 4 or a 5, of course. In total, you will have around 30 houses that the players will be able to raid during the game. Afterwards, you will replace one of the small greenhouses here. I will do the setup in a second. So you will place one of those greenhouses here with the outpost markers, which you can either attack or do some work with them. So here I placed all the houses on the game board. So we have the small houses in green, the medium houses in yellow, and the large houses in red. The outpost is here, and I tend to do it a little bit differently than the rules are explaining right now. They are all white on the backside, so I just shuffle the outpost marker into the with 14 other small houses, and then I will just place them randomly so that the outpost marker shows up somewhere on the game board here. One thing I haven't shown you are those resource tokens. Those resource tokens will be put into a cloth bag like this one. Unfortunately, this did not ship with the prototype here, but I think it will do just fine. So we'll put them all in, and later on when you raid a house or something like that, you will grab from this cloth bag in order to determine which resources you are able to find in that house. For each player you reveal one mission card and place those next to the game board as a public display basically. So each player can try to claim those missions from now on. So for example, these are the missions, so you have to spend a certain amount of resources and then you gain a special benefit for this mission card. And then we are basically good to go. At the start of each game round, the starting player will draw 2 global event cards. I've done that here. And will choose one of those cards to remain face up, the other one will be discarded. So I think Carter will start the game for this little demonstration round, and he chooses this Team Up global event card. So the Hidden Lab will be discarded and this card is now active. And what does it do? Every player can give 3 action points to get 1 incident card. So Carter spent his 3 action points, and finally I found out that I had to cut those positions out to get the proper use of those wheels, which are pretty cool now. And therefore he's allowed to draw 1 incident card. And that's the Scavenger incident card. A white car is on the side of the road. Hola, looking for something cool? Those cards are pretty much one-time use cards, and you can play them when the appropriate condition shows up here. In this case, if you get the lower amount of resources when doing a raid, you gain 1 skill point, which is pretty cool, and I explain those raids when I come to them. And those are the cards for Zoe and Mayu, but I think I won't show them to you at this point in time. I will show them when I play them. But let's start the actual turn. During your turn you can spend action points to do a lot of things. You can move, raid a house, attack another player, craft an item, trade with another player or the black market here, or you can take actions at the outpost. Whenever you move over a barricade, which are marked in red, like this one here, you have to spend an action point. You also have to spend an action point when you enter a new street tile. Basically, you can spend as many action points as you want and consider this as one single move action. Medium houses are definitely a little bit better in respect to resources, so I think Carter will spend 1 movement here. I'm not so sure if this counts as 1 barricade here. It's not really red but orange, so I think it's not, but to be honest I haven't asked. I'm playing it that way, and he wants to definitely raid this house. As he has not left the street tile and he has also not passed the barricade, he does not have to spend any action point for movement here. In order to raid a house, you have to be in front of it, like Carter currently is. Then for a medium house, you pay 8 action points. Then you draw from the appropriate raid deck. So small, medium or large house, and resolve the house card accordingly. First of all, let's spend the action point, so he still has 4 more left. And then we would draw a house card from the medium deck here. I've just drawn 2 of them because right now there are 2 different kinds available. One that's showing a die here and one that's showing this blacklist symbol over there. Let's start with the die card first. The card with the die has to be resolved. The card that shows the skull doesn't. So you can choose not to raid the ladder. In the final case, you gain a favor point, which brings you closer to possibly winning the game. As said, here you have to raid the house, and therefore you will roll a die. For this prototype I'm using a standard D6, but I understood that the final product would ship with a custom die as well. And as the odds are 50-50 for raiding a house, we just say that you succeed on odd numbers. So when you roll an odd number, you are allowed to grab the upper number of rewards from the resource bag, and you are also allowed to use the bonus ability of the house cards. If you roll even, you only get the lower number and you are not allowed to use the special ability. So let's roll a die and hope for an odd number. In this case we are lucky, so we are allowed to grab 6 resource tokens from the cloth bag, and I will show you the special ability in a second. So these are the 6 resources I was able to draw. Unluckily for Carter, those are not real weapons, but I think in order to craft actual items he needs several resource icons anyhow. As he successfully raided the house, he can now activate this card here. He can now choose, he can get 1 blacklist point in order to get 3 action points back, or he can give 2 action points to get 1 favor point, and a favor point is definitely one way of winning the game. So I think Carter will stay peaceful, and I think he will spend those 2 action points to gain 1, or his first favor point. So he's down to 2 action points, but he just got his first favor point. Awesome. The raid card will be discarded and might show up during a later raid, possibly, but I think we won't run out of this medium house stack. The resources will go to Carter, and when you successfully raid a house, the house will be discarded and is no longer available for any other player. If the raid card shows a skull icon, you still might want to raid it. In this case, you gain the appropriate amount of blacklist points, which is printed here, and the amount of resources printed on the card, without the need of rolling the die. Additionally, you resolve the text at the bottom of the card automatically. So basically the only real penalty are those blacklist points. And when you gain blacklist points, you cannot gain favor points, because this is basically balancing each other out. So when you go into the blacklist direction, you are pretty sure you won't be able to make it to the favor point endgame victory condition. And in this case, the player could decide to gain an additional +1 blacklist point to get 6 energy back or action points back, which could be pretty powerful, because this could leave you for the next turn, for example, with enough action points to win the game. So this is really important to keep in mind. Additionally, whenever you have 8 blacklist points, so 8 of those red points, basically you're no longer able to raid any houses, so you have to gain some favor points back, maybe doing the outpost action or stuff like that, in order to keep on raiding. So keep that in mind as well. I think this is also version 2.0 rule. This was pretty brand new in respect to when I originally tested the game. Carter is taking a move action and he's done a normal action, so we come to Zoe. I think Zoe will do pretty much the same. She will move here in front of this small house, and there she has to spend 6 action points in order to raid a small house. So here's the small house card we have drawn for Zoe. So she could now gain 2 blacklist points in order to claim 5 resources, and then she could directly spend those resources to get 2 skill points, which is definitely huge, because when you have enough skill points you can also win this game. So I think, yeah, why not doing that? So she will gain 2 blacklist points now, and then we will basically grab 5 resources, but I will directly spend those to gain 2 skill points for her. So basically she now has 2 blacklist points and also 2 skill points. Okie dokie, now it's Mayu's turn, and as it seems I might have forgotten one house here, not so sure, but nevertheless I will move on with her, and I think she will go for this house. So this time she has to spend 1 action point because she's crossing into a new tile, and then she will spend 10 action points in order to raid the large house over there. And just for the record, it's not always nice to go after the bigger houses. I'm just doing that because I want to show you all the different cards in this game here. So in this case we have drawn this card with a die, so again we have to roll a die for her. She would be able to gain 8 resources if she would successfully raid the house, or 6 if she would fail. And this card is a little bit different, because in this case you have to give 5 action points if you fail to raid the house. Luckily for her, she only has 1 final point left, so I think it won't be that bad. So let's roll the die, and again she's lucky. She gains 8 resources now, which is awesome. And so here are her 8 resources she has drawn. Unfortunately, this is not enough to claim any of those missions as of yet. So for example, for this one you need 4 yellows, 3 orange and 3 red, but really this takes a while until you are able to get the right set of resources. Note, you can always trade with another player, which is pretty important in this game, or you can go to the black market trader, but for once he does not have any of all of the resources, and the ratio is really not very good. So you have to trade in 4 view resources for any one of those resources that's shown here. Coming back to Carter, I think Carter will spend his last 2 action points to move 1 space here to a new tile, and then he will cross a barricade. This will also cost him 1 action point. Zoe will spend 1 action point in order to craft one of her items. So indeed she will go for this gas cooker here. So for one, she has to pay the resources that are printed here on the side, and for this prototype the color of the tokens is important, not the actual icons on it. So this is a gray one, a light gray one and a green one. She is now allowed to grab this gas cooker card, but she also would be allowed to gain 1 additional skill point. So she already has 3 skill points in total, which is definitely not that bad. And additionally, she can use the gas cooker here once in order to get 1 resource of her choice. And some of you who are familiar with 12 realms might remember this little icon here, which shows this is a one-time use item. Of course, you are still allowed to keep the skill point here. Mayu only has 1 last action point left, and I think she will use that to cross over this barricade here to prepare for the next round to raid this small house there. Carter is basically out of action points as well, so it's only Zoe left, and she has still 5 more action points as far as I can tell. So we will spend 1 action point to move to a new tile and 1 additional action point to move over this barricade here, which leaves her with 3 action points which she can use during her next turn. The next round will be started by the player that has collected the least resource tokens, and as Zoe spends some of her resource tokens, she will definitely go first now. This time she draws 2 global event cards, and again she has to choose one. All players with 5+ collected one get 10 additional action points at the beginning of their turn. This is huge, of course. And settlement, trading with other players does not cost any action points. I think for her trading is not that bad. So I think she might go for this action card. So we will discard the deal global event card. So trading with other players does not cost any action points in this round. And I really have to say I love the artwork on those cards. That really applies for the global event cards, also for the house cards. So very thematic. And I'm really looking forward to the final production quality of this one. As mentioned, we start with Zoe, and I think I might have explained one rule a little bit wrong, and this is in respect to your action points. You really refill your points to 15 points. You don't gain those additional action points. So really gaining additional action points is something you have to take care of with incident cards and stuff like that. So Zoe starts the new game round with 15 fresh action points, and therefore she can basically use them in order to raid those houses, for example. And I think she will just move in front of this house. She can do that for free basically, and then she has to spend 6 action points in order to draw a small house card. And again, this is a perfect card for her. The golden city took my father. Resist. Okay, again we have to roll the die. Let's take any die here and really hope for an odd number. This time she's not lucky. So 2 things are happening. For one, she's only allowed to claim the lower part of this one. The house will stay where it is, so it can be raided again. And she's also not able to gain the special ability, which is so cool because she would be allowed to gain 2 additional skill points. But nevertheless, here are her 2 additional resources, and we just keep the house where it is, and then we come to Mayu. I think you got a pretty good understanding of what the normal actions you would normally do during your turn, and I think there are 2 additional stuff or things I have to explain to you. And the very first thing is to explain how a fight is actually going to work. So let's just say we have Zoe here and maybe Carter, being the aggressive guy, in a later turn move down to her tile here. You must be able to reach the other meeple through a street area. In this case, this is possible. If it would be that situation, it won't be allowed. So let's just assume this would be the current situation. The attacker has to spend 5 action points. Additionally, he has to discard 1 gun resource, and the defender can now choose to defend. The defender then also would have to spend a gun resource, if he would have any, as well as 3 action points. In the case of a defense, both players would roll a fighting die. Again, in this prototype I'm using normally 6s, and afterwards we would apply the results, which are strongly dependent of the character board and their special abilities. So here you see the references for Zoe, one being the nuke symbol with an automatic success and some other possible effects, and the nuke cannot be defended by any way. But let's roll the 2 dice. First the attacking die for Carter and then the defense die for Zoe. In this case, Carter rolled a 3, which means he rolled this POW, and he also is allowed to craft an item for free from his item deck. And this is really a huge benefit for Carter in this case. But the attack is not automatically successful. It's only with a nuke item, which he has 2 of those, which is definitely a good thing. Second, we have to check the combat die for Zoe. And of course we have to look at the defense column here. And the 2 says it's a shield, so she successfully defended from the attack from Carter. The defender always gets the bonus that's printed in the defense row here. So in this case she could steal a card and stuff like that. She would not have successfully defended. Whereas on the attacker side, he definitely has to achieve or successfully attack the other player. So in this case, Carter is not allowed to draw an item card from his deck. Pity. But for this example's sake, let's assume she did roll a 6, so she did not defend from her attack, or maybe she didn't defend at all. In this case, the attacker can now choose a reward. The first option would be to steal a favor disc from the other player if he has any. Those favor discs are worth favor points and are definitely a great way to win this game as well. If the defender doesn't have a favor disc, the attacker could still go for option B. He could steal some resources. In this case, the defending player can choose to give the attacker 5 resources that the defender chooses, or he lets the attacker choose to take 3 resources of his choice. And as mentioned, there are several other characters who can roll different results. For example, Garcia here gets a skill point whenever he successfully attacks and stuff like that. So this is really a great variety in respect to how you can play this game. One last major thing to explain is how to deal or interact with the outpost. So let's say Zoe here wants to interact with the outpost. She would move to a new tile, spend an action point there, and then she can now enter the outpost for 5 action points, like this. In the outpost, you can afterwards either work for favor credits or to test a new medicine. So you can spend 8 action points in order to work for a favor credit. In this case, you get the next favor disc, which are worth 4, 3 or 2 favor points. You start with the most expensive ones, of course. So, also a very good way to win the game. You can also spend 10 action points to test the medicine, which will bring you 2 favorite points. You typically do this when there are no more favor discs available, of course. After you have interacted with the outpost, you automatically leave the outpost. Another player can attack the outpost for 7 action points. In this case, all players currently in the outpost have to leave it, like this, and pay 3 resources each to the attacker. The attacker also gains 3 blacklist points for this evil deed, which means he loses 3 favor points. But as there are more ways to win the game, it's still a valid option. Of course, during her next turn she could move in there again and do another action and stuff like that, and then the attacker could still attack it. But keep in mind, each attack costs the attacker 7 action points, and Also, you lose 3 favor points or gain 3 blacklist points, which is basically the same, which means when you reach 8 blacklist points, you won't be able to raid another house. And of course, when all the houses are gone, it's really vital for the players to interact with each other. So for example, attacking another player or maybe trading with another player, trading with a black market here. So really, this game offers a lot of player interaction, which I enjoy a great deal. Some final thoughts from my side. I really think that Raid and Trade is one of the coolest games that Mage Company is offering through Kickstarter. Of course, Forenza was also an awesome game, but this was completely finished. I don't say that Hög is a bad game, but really Raid and Raid, I enjoyed a big deal here. It's a really great job. I really cannot wait until to see the final components for that. There might be still some little, let's say, minor misunderstandings in respect to the rules, but I think they still have some time to polish them up. And so I think in the end you will be really able to get a great game out of this. I really totally like the theme, so this post-apocalyptic environment. I like the artwork, I like the player interaction, so you can really deal with each other more or less in peace, or you can really punch each other in the face, which is really what I enjoy a lot in a game like this. The game comes with so many different characters which play completely different. So when you start your first game with Zoe, then you play with Garcia, it's a total different experience, I can assure you that. Additionally, you have these global event cards which will change the course of the game. You have different mission cards which you have to achieve. The incident cards which I haven't shown you in much detail. You also have the item cards which will bring you some additional benefits, and also the house or the raid cards and stuff like that. The game board is also modular, so really the replayability in this game is enormous. As mentioned, this game starts basically today on Kickstarter. You will find a link in the description of this video, but I'm pretty sure other previewers will also run a little preview video or walkthrough video of this game. But really, I encourage you to check it out and see if that's a right fit for you. Hope to see you soon, and I think I will continue my playthrough of Xayah as of the next video, and until then, bye bye.